Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a concept that challenges everything modern dating culture tells men. Masculine men don't chase, they disappear. We live in a time when men are often told they must prove their worth, chase endlessly, and repeatedly explain themselves. But the reality? The most powerful move a man can make is not to fight for her, it's to walk away without a word. Why? Because silence is louder than arguments, and absence leaves a more substantial impact than confrontation. Actual masculine energy does not beg, does not seek validation, and does not cling. It moves purposefully, stands firm in its value, and disappears when necessary. This isn't about playing games. It's about power, self-respect, and emotional mastery. In today's video, we'll break down the psychology behind this mindset, the philosophy that supports it, and the brutal lessons every man must learn after a heartbreak. And if you're still skeptical, check out this story. He was devoted, patient, and endlessly forgiving. Every message was answered and every request was fulfilled. He believed that unwavering loyalty would be enough to hold everything together. But then, without warning, she was gone. Not with an explanation or slow detachment, but with cold finality. Ghosted, replaced, discarded as if he had never mattered. The actual wound was not the loss itself, but the realization that being the good man had led not to appreciation, but abandonment. He could have begged. He could have demanded answers, sent desperate messages, pleaded for closure. Instead, he chose something different. Silence. No reaction, no emotional outburst. Where she expected a chase, she found nothing. Where she thought there would be heartbreak on display, there was only absence. And that absence spoke louder than any words ever could. He had been predictable in her mind. Always there, always available, always giving. But now, for the first time, she had to wonder. Had she miscalculated? Had she truly lost something valuable? That uncertainty became the power shift. This wasn't about manipulation or games. It was about reclaiming dignity and understanding that true strength lies in detachment. The man who does not beg, who does not fight for someone who has already chosen to leave, becomes rare. And in that rarity he regains what he had unknowingly lost, his worth. Here are 10 brutal lessons every man needs after a broken heart. 1. Feel it once, never again. Pain is not an enemy but a mentor, shaping a man's character in ways that comfort never could. Most men, when confronted with heartbreak, make the critical mistake of avoiding pain instead of embracing it. They drown themselves in distractions, rushing into rebound relationships, losing themselves in work, numbing their emotions with vices, all in a desperate attempt to escape. But what they fail to realize is that avoidance only prolongs the suffering. Pain is not something to run from. It is something to face, learn from, and transform into strength. A man who understands this does not fear pain. He knows that actual growth is forged in struggle. When a relationship ends, he does not beg for another chance, chase after validation, or wallow in self-pity. He stands firm, allowing himself to feel every ounce of the heartbreak, not as a victim but as a student of life. The moment he accepts pain as a natural and necessary force, it begins to lose its grip on him. Every hardship, every loss, every disappointment is an opportunity, not a punishment. Stoicism teaches that suffering is not caused by external events but by the story we attach to them. A breakup, for example, is just a breakup. It is not proof of unworthiness, not a reflection of failure, not a reason to collapse. Yet men who resist reality create their torment, replaying memories, obsessing over what went wrong, and convincing themselves they were not enough. The pain does not stem from the event itself, but from their refusal to let go. True strength lies in the ability to detach, to see events for what they are rather than what emotions paint them to be. A masculine man does not allow the past to define him. He does not stay wounded, waiting for closure that will never come. He does not seek validation from those who have already chosen to leave. Instead, he takes the lesson, applies it, and moves forward without looking back. He understands that the only pain worth experiencing is the one that fuels his evolution. He will never suffer the same wound twice, once he has learned what he needs to know. The mark of a strong man is not that he avoids pain, but that he feels it entirely, once and never again. 2. Silence speaks louder than anger. She expects a reaction, a surge of emotion, a plea for answers, a desperate attempt to reclaim control. But when met with silence, she encounters something more unsettling: uncertainty. A man rooted in his strength does not offer validation through outbursts. He does not feel the moment with drama. Instead, he withdraws, letting the absence of words create a void she cannot ignore. In that void, her mind begins to race. Questions swirl in the silence, each louder than he could have spoken. Did he not care? Did I misjudge him? Did I lose something valuable? The psychological vacuum left behind forces her to fill in the blanks, and what she imagines is often far more impactful than reality. This is the power of restraint. To react emotionally is to give away control. But a man who remains composed, who does not chase, who lets the unanswered linger in the air, he commands attention in a way desperation never could. She is drawn back, not because he demanded it, but because she cannot shake the feeling that he has something she does not yet understand. Silence is not a weakness, it is the ultimate display of power. It leaves a mark that anger never could. 3. Stop explaining yourself. The moment you feel the need to explain yourself, you've already lost ground. A man who constantly justifies his actions or pleads for understanding unknowingly diminishes his value. Dignity should never be something you argue for, it should be something you embody. Women don't walk away because they forget a man's worth. They leave because they assume he will always be there. The more available and predictable he is, the easier it is to take him for granted. People crave what is scarce, and this is especially true in relationships. The more a man tries to convince a woman of his worth, the more he appears replaceable. Actual value is demonstrated through presence, not persuasion. A man who moves with quiet confidence and doesn't feel the need to explain every decision naturally commands respect. He does not need to debate his place in a woman's life because his actions already speak for themselves. Instead of over-explaining, a man should let his choices define him. If she questions his motives, he can simply respond, "That's just how I do things," or "I don't feel the need to justify myself." These statements, delivered calmly, assert his self-respect. They send the message that he is not seeking approval, which makes him more desirable. A woman respects a man who stands firm, who doesn't seek validation but instead follows his path. She is drawn to the mystery of a man who does not always explain himself, because a strength she cannot control lies in that silence. And that, in itself, is power. 4. The law of indifference. Genuine indifference is not an act or strategy, but the absence of emotional dependence. A man who has mastered indifference does not seek validation or react to attempts at emotional manipulation. Whether consciously or unconsciously, women will often test a man's emotional response to see if they still hold power over him. This might come as pulling away, acting distant, or creating drama. Some may even go as far as attempting to make him jealous or uncertain about their feelings. In these moments, a weak man will scramble to regain her attention, seeking reassurance and validation to restore his sense of connection. His desperate reaction only fuels her perception of his emotional neediness. On the other hand, a strong, emotionally secure and grounded man remains unmoved. His calmness becomes his shield, allowing him to navigate these tests with an unshakable composure. When a woman pulls away, he does not chase after her. He remains centered, focusing on his life, growth, and purpose, not letting her fluctuations dictate his emotional state. The moment he stops reacting to her shifts, he reclaims the power in the relationship. This is the silent battle of power in relationships. The law of indifference is not about bitterness or pretending not to care. It's about truly not allowing external forces to control one's emotional state. It's psychological warfare. Silent, subtle, yet incredibly effective. A man's indifference disrupts expectations and shifts the relationship dynamics. A woman who once believed she could easily manipulate the situation now faces the unsettling realization that she cannot. The very presence of indifference forces her to reassess her position and the value of the relationship. What she once took for granted now seems uncertain and paradoxically more valuable. In this way, indifference is not a sign of disinterest, but rather a demonstration of emotional strength. It tells her that her actions do not define him and his worth is not contingent on her validation. A man who embodies this principle is not easily swayed by love, rejection, or praise. His emotional equilibrium remains intact regardless of external circumstances. This Stoic mindset allows him to operate on his terms, unaffected by whether someone stays or leaves. Paradoxically, it is this very detachment that makes him more appealing. His ability to maintain his independence and emotional control often makes him the one women chase. 5. Become her mirror, not her pet. The key to understanding women is recognizing the balance between attraction and respect. Many men make the mistake of becoming overly accommodating, chasing after her approval, or constantly trying to please her. This approach may seem kind, but it only weakens their position. Strong men, on the other hand, understand the power of reflection, mirroring her energy rather than becoming a passive follower. When she becomes distant or cold, don't chase her. Instead, mirror her actions by pulling back yourself. This subtle shift demonstrates that you're not desperate for her attention, but are centered and secure in your space. If she disrespects you or tests your boundaries, it's not about explaining your feelings or reasoning with her. It's about creating distance. Let your actions speak louder than any words. By stepping back, you communicate that your respect is not negotiable, fostering a deeper understanding of your self-worth. People change only when they feel the consequences of their actions. This principle is key in any relationship. When you enforce your boundaries and standards through your behavior rather than constant explanations or justifications, you create a dynamic where she realizes she must meet your standards to maintain the connection. This power dynamic shifts in your favor when you don't over-explain or beg for validation. The strength of this approach lies in its simplicity. Don't chase. Don't plead. Instead, show through your actions that you value yourself. When a woman sees that you respect yourself enough to distance yourself from disrespect or lack of effort, she begins to recognize the value you bring to the table. The attraction grows, not out of neediness, but mutual respect and understanding. 6. Build your fortress. When she walks away, it isn't the end. It's the beginning of an opportunity to grow into a stronger version of yourself. Heartbreak, though painful, can be used as fuel for self-improvement. Instead of dwelling on the loss, channel that energy into your physical, mental, and financial growth. Rebuild yourself from the inside out, focusing on becoming the person you were always meant to be. This process isn't just about getting over her. It's about becoming someone who would never beg for love or validation again. The person you were before may have been dependent or uncertain, but the person you will become is untouchable, confident, independent, and emotionally resilient. As you evolve, you become someone who no longer needs anyone to complete them. You become your fortress, built on strength, self-worth, and purpose. In doing so, you stop being vulnerable to the whims of others because your value is no longer tied to external validation. Women are drawn to men who are already whole, not those looking for someone to fill an emotional void. Dark psychology comes into play here. The more you evolve, the less likely you will be manipulated. Your newfound strength and emotional distance make you untouchable in the best possible way. You stand firm in your sense of self and no longer rely on anyone to validate your worth. In the process, you make yourself a person who commands respect, not just from her but from everyone who crosses your path. Remember, when you build your fortress, you no longer need to chase, you simply attract, and the ones who once doubted your strength will return, but by then, you'll be too busy living your best life to notice. 7. Never break no contact. Every time you break no contact, you restart the pain. The moment you reach out hoping for closure or rekindled affection, you surrender your progress. Healing is not in her response, but in your ability to move without it. True strength lies in the discipline to resist the impulse to reconnect, no matter how strong the temptation. Silence is power. When you remain absent, she is left to wonder about your thoughts, emotions, and life without her. The unknown is unsettling, and she begins to question that void. But the moment you reach out, you eliminate the mystery. You remind her that she still holds space in your mind, confirming that she never truly lost you. In dark psychology, silence signals strength, while contact reveals weakness. The one who reaches out first needs validation. When a man remains distant, he communicates self-sufficiency, resilience, and control. He no longer seeks permission to heal. He has already chosen to. Stoicism teaches that real power comes from restraint, not action. A man who resists his urges and refuses to break no contact despite the emotional pull is in control of himself. By holding the line, he shifts the dynamic. He forces her to either move toward him or live with the weight of his absence. Either way, he wins. 8. Let her sit with her decision. She made a choice, and now she must live with it. No matter what emotions she feels afterward, you are not responsible for easing her burden. If she chooses to walk away, let her experience what that truly means, without your interference, without your reassurance, without you trying to soften the reality of her decision. Many men make the mistake of checking in, offering comfort, or leaving the door open, thinking it will change her mind. But actual realization only comes in absence. People don't regret decisions when they are constantly reassured. They regret them when they feel the void. This is where self-control separates the weak from the strong. A man rooted in Stoicism understands he cannot control the choices of others, only his response to them. He does not chase, plead, or make her decision easier. Instead, he steps back, allowing her to experience the weight of her actions. And in that silence, in that space, regret has room to grow. If she truly made the right choice, she won't look back. But if she were impulsive and underestimated your value, the silence would force her to confront the reality she created. And that is where power shifts, not through words or persuasion, but through your ability to walk away and let her sit with what she has done. 9. They always come back, but you're already gone. Women always return when the silence becomes too loud. When a man walks away with quiet certainty, he leaves behind a space they didn't expect to feel. It's not about revenge or proving a point. It's about moving forward with discipline, not bitterness. The moment she realizes she no longer has access to you, her curiosity takes over. But this isn't redemption, it's a test, and most men fail by running back the second she reappears. People don't regret losing what was readily available. They regret what they can no longer reach. This is dark psychology in motion. The mind fixates on what's slipping away, and desire is often fueled by absence rather than presence. When a man reacts emotionally through anger or eagerness, he confirms that he is always waiting. But the one who truly moves on, not out of spite but out of self-respect, is the one she remembers. Stoicism teaches that real power lies in non-reactivity. Moving forward isn't about hatred, it's about focusing on yourself. A man who embraces this mindset doesn't just win, he evolves. And by the time she looks back, he's already gone. 10. Disappear like a god. Disappearing is not about punishing her. It's not a game tactic or attempt to spark jealousy. It's about reclaiming your dignity, recognizing your worth, and stepping out of a space where your presence is no longer valued. When a man stops seeking validation, stops orbiting her world, and ceases to exist in her digital sphere, he does something far more potent than words ever could. He forces her to feel his absence. Psychologically, silence is louder than any confrontation. The mind despises unanswered questions, and when she notices you've vanished without explanation, she will fill the void with her thoughts, regrets, and sense of loss. She will wonder why you no longer care or have moved on without a trace. This discomfort and uncertainty unsettles her more than any plea for attention ever could. Proper self-control means walking away without bitterness, without resentment, without looking back. It's not about waiting for her reaction or hoping she realizes what she lost. It's about knowing deep down that by the time she does, you will have already moved so far ahead that her realization no longer matters. Masculine men don't chase, they disappear. There is no closure, no debate, no second chances. The highest power is not revenge but indifference. When a man truly disappears, he becomes legendary. She doesn't just lose a man, she loses a kingdom. If you're done being an option, disappear. If you're ready to evolve, stop chasing. If you understand your worth, walk away. The only true power is complete emotional control, and the moment you master that, you separate yourself from every other man she has ever known. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this shift in mindset? What lessons have you learned from walking away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights on masculinity, power dynamics, and personal growth. See you in the next one.